I'm really excited about today. We are doing the webinar a little bit differently. It's going to be more of a podcast kind of style where I'm going to be talking with John Rearick today a little bit about what a luggage release is, what a security release is, and how it affects the websites that you have and that you edit. So I'm going to let John introduce himself a little bit and tell you about his kind of role on the team and a little bit about who he is. So, John.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'm John Rearick. You might know me as the guy who puts links into the chat with these Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
I'm usually pretty on top of getting the resources in there. So I hope somebody else is doing that for us today,
Yeah.
if we're talking about links. But no, I'm a developer here at in biology IT, and I don't know. A lot of my job is taking care of luggage releases. Now, the whole team works on all the code and the changes that go on, and I just kind of make sure that it's all working right. And
he helps facilitate these releases, and really I see you do a lot of deep diving, into the code. Is there a merge conflict? Does this change break anything, essentially? Like that happens in development. There's multiple things being worked on at the same time, and so John makes sure that all those separate parts of the code are touched, that when they all come together, they are actually working very well together.
Yeah, and I come up with lots of scenarios that break things.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what if you put an image here and oh, hey, that doesn't look good. Like, let's go back and take a look at that. I'm pretty good at breaking things, I think. That's something I learned how to do early in my life.
And that way we can figure those things out before it gets released. And then
so hopefully we got most or all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So wonderful. What we'd like to do is just step through a little bit, I guess walk through some of the different types of releases that we manage. And when I say we, I mean developers manage. And let's start with the basics. So essentially, Drupal is the content management system that your websites are built on. And when Drupal, or what is it, monthly, pretty much,
monthly.
Every month, John Rearick is watching very closely, Angela is watching very closely, all of our developers are watching to see if there's a security release, because the security releases go out, like we said, every month, all the time. They're being watched to keep sites secure, and Drupal has developers maintaining it all over the world. So there are contributors to these security releases from all over the world. So let's take a look at what it looks like. So I feel like let's go to the Drupal list. So you can see that there are security releases quite often, and that the latest one was on the 17th of October. So you can see that that's listed here, and then developers can look at the link and view all of the different security updates that have occurred. Do you want to talk about this just a little bit in brief about?
Yeah. So in the October 17th one, there were multiple things that they fixed, and each one has a different rating. So there's like moderately critical, and there's there we go, and what type of security breach it is, and what part of the system it affects, what version of Drupal it affects. So we go through all of these and very quickly understand what are the consequences of this release, and how serious is it, and how quickly we need to do it, whether it's publicly exploited yet. But our goal is to get all of our sites updated within about 24 hours. And that's a lot of work when we're talking like over 200 sites.
Yeah.
We evaluate it. We make sure, like, oh, does this touch anything that we've changed If we've changed something, how would this affect our features? Make sure that most of the time it doesn't. And then we merge it in and release it as quickly as we can.
So in looking at this page, some of the people's names have, a lot of them have Drupal security team next to their name. What does Drupal security team mean?
They are volunteers who have been vetted by the Drupal community to respond to issues that are reported. So somebody might report to the security team, oh, hey, I found this vulnerability. It may not be known publicly anywhere that this exists. And the idea is that you confidentially contact the security team so that Drupal has an opportunity to fix it before it goes public. And, hackers can exploit it. And so the idea is you submit these issues to the security team and they help fix it, they coordinate the fix, they get it. And as soon as it's out there and published, you better update fast because then everybody knows about it.
Yes, absolutely. So something really neat happened. If you can talk a little bit about this, John, we had someone from our team actually who you can see reported an error. And that would be our very own Nick Boer. So we'd like to give a shout out to Nick for his efforts in this. Nick actually, if you can see, a lot of these reports are reported by an individual, and then they have folks that fix the items. And Nick is part of our biology IT team who found a vulnerability and then worked with the security team and others to fix it. Can you explain a little bit about what the contextual links validation error is?
I'm not very familiar. I didn't dive into this one. It's a Drupal 8 only issue, so
right.
As we were working on the next generation of our platform, Nick found it, and being a good steward of security, did not really tell anybody on our team about it until we saw the release and like, what? Hey, we know that guy. So he was able to find that particular vulnerability. It was a critical vulnerability in Drupal 8, which means that somebody from outside could execute code on the server. So that was
a really good find.
A very good find and a very good fix.
And a note that because of Nick's efforts here and having a strong community and being connected with the Drupal community, this was something that was able to be fixed worldwide. So that was pretty neat. So thank you very much to Nick. And if you see Nick or work with him, please tell him congratulations on that. So next, let's talk a little bit about how that affects the Luggage platform. And we're looking here at security releases that are, this one is Drupal 7 and 8. Some of them are one or the other. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Luggage release list. So I think I have that link here. So on GitHub is where all of the content or all of the code lives for the releases. Can you talk just in brief about what is GitHub at a general level and what is a release, and talk a little bit about the differences of the two types of releases really that we maintain.
Okay. GitHub is, to try and not be super technical, is it's a code repository. So all the code that we work on goes on this platform called GitHub, and that facilitates the collaboration of our team to work on the same code. And it allows us to evaluate different versions of the code and different features that we're developing separately so that it's very organized and we know what's going on and everybody can figure out stuff. And when we're comfortable with the way the development is at a certain point, we can make a release. And so there's two kinds of releases. And we talked a lot about the security release, which has to happen really quickly and all that stuff. And that happens anytime there's a security release. So anytime there's a Drupal 7 security release, we'll make another. We'll do the patch, test it, and make a release immediately. And that will be based off the very last release of Luggage. So if you're behind on Luggage, and usually for most of us, that's we're keeping you up to date. It's not a big deal if you just need to update your security release. There's a dinging noise. I don't know what that is. And then the other kind of release is a feature release, which is what we just did a couple days ago. And that is separate from security. And that's when we, as a team, add features, fix bugs, and stuff like that. And so it's been a while since we've had an actual feature release. Yeah. And so this one is huge. It's got, I forget how many issues were worked on, both behind the scenes and in front, and the theme and accessibility and all that stuff.
So that's part of the reason that we wanted to have this webinar today, was to just highlight some of the updates that have occurred with Luggage, and also highlight how those feature updates get put into a Luggage release. And a lot of that has to do with all of you and all of your great suggestions and your motivation to improve your websites and how they work and operate. And so let's take a look at some of those. We'll go back to the meeting for today. And I think that we, on the meeting event page, have some things listed. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Luggage Docs here, and we'll walk through some of those. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. John and I are happy to watch that and help answer those questions. And if there's any questions right now, we could take a break. We talked a lot about the releases and GitHub and what that means. If there are any questions about that big bunch of information, please feel free to ask. So, all right. The first thing that we wanted to discuss was the image auto rotation update. And some of you had experienced uploading images on profiles, I think, for the most part, and those images would be rotated, in a way that you didn't want. So that was something that you all reported and that we reviewed, and we were able to replicate and then found a solution. So do you want to talk a little bit about what that solution meant? I think it was involving finding a module, maybe?
Yeah, so the image auto rotation. Usually what happens here is you have a picture that's in portrait, upright, like this. And then you upload it, and then it displays in landscape or something. And what the heck happened? Why did it rotate that?
Yes.
Usually, probably about 90% of the time, it's because somebody took a picture with their phone. And what happens with the phone is when you take a picture, you'll rotate it and you take the picture. But the actual picture file is always in the same orientation. And what happens in the file is that a little bit of metadata, it's called EXIF, gets added to the file that says, automatically rotate this 90 degrees. And what happens is when you upload it to a Drupal site, it will not read that metadata and just put it the original way. And so we figured out a module, and I think we needed some stuff on the server to get this to work right, so that Drupal would read that data and rotate the image properly after you upload it.
Yeah, so now, as we work through updating the Luggage websites, when you get this update, then you won't have this happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
This is something we've seen even like on sites like Flickr and Google and all that stuff. And if those people can't figure out how to get it right 100% of the time,
it's a pretty
complicated issue. Yes.
Yeah. So alternate text. Alternate text, you all have been doing a great job of adding, and that is now required when you add an image. So you'll see the little alternate text field, and then you'll have a red star next to it now, so that field is required. So that has been updated. And since we're talking about alternate text, I'll just mention that we also had several accessibility updates, and Sarah Carney on our team had a lot to do with those, as well as others, Angela and others on the team. So what that means is that essentially a lot of things happen with the code in the backend that you may not actually see or experience as content editors. And so the accessibility tools that are used for folks to experience the website do recognize those code snippets and those pieces of information that is provided for those devices specifically. And so we're paying attention to that, and we just wanted to let you know that there's been a lot of updates in that regard.
Yeah, there's really no 100% accessibility solution, so it's an ongoing process, much like security updates. Accessibility updates is just as we learn more, as technologies grow, we implement better features.
Yeah.
And as we learn more, we do better. Continuous improvement.
Yes. So that's wonderful. And it looks like we're on the track to get an accessibility coordinator here on campus. And I think that was mentioned today in the news. So that was great. Let's talk a little bit about the news. So there's two things that have been updated for news. And can you talk a little bit first about the Facebook link for news?
Oh, yeah. So if you upload an image to one of your news articles, it will add some metadata to the page, which tells Facebook which image to use when you post it on Facebook. This also works for things like Twitter and other places that give you like a little preview snippet or whatever of what the link is about. And so before, when you'd like link a news article on Facebook, it was kind of hit or miss whether it would get the right image. And a lot of times you ended up with like the nameplate or something as the representative image, and that just doesn't look really well. So we figured out, how that system works. And now when you post a news release on Facebook and you have an image, it'll take the first image that you have in there and use that as the descriptive image.
Yeah.
So that's pretty slick.
Sorry to interrupt there. Your posts will look a lot better and a lot nicer. So along with that, we had an additional news update where images can now display on the homepage automatically. And I don't want anyone to worry, because this won't happen on your site unless you've got the latest Luggage update. And a reminder that some of you, as you've built your websites, have come to us with requests of the news feature to make changes to it, call things, the name of it something different, or have the view display differently than the default Luggage feature would display it. And just a reminder that when changes like that are made, then that particular view or area of the feature that you've requested to be updated will kind of disregard the default updates, because we don't want you to get something that doesn't look how you specifically requested. So if your website doesn't do some of these things that we're talking about and you would like it to, please contact us by emailing websupport@iastate.edu, and we are more than happy to update you, revert back to kind of the default, and work with you to get what you want. So I just wanted to specify that up front. But with a brand new Luggage website that stood up today, the news images work a little differently. Can you talk about that? As far as when you have a view, which is like your news page, we're going to automatically display the first image that you've uploaded.
Yep, and it doesn't have to be in the body or anything. So If you didn't insert the image into the body, you still get the image. So if you
Mm-hmm.
don't want the image on the main page, that's fine. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to insert it. But if you do, that's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't show the image twice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so John did a lot of work on that so the image doesn't show twice. And so it's just kind of a nice way to make your news page look a lot better to have those images in place. Also, the great part about it is that a lot of you dive into those news teasers, for example, and you make all of your images a specific width so that on the news page, in the summary, everything looks perfect and like really nice. Now you won't have to worry about that because you just rearrange the images to which one you want to appear first, and we're going to automatically do that for you so that all the images look nice. Just a couple more things to wrap up here. We have an alternate URL that is now included on events. What is an alternate URL?
So you probably know how that works on news, where you say if you specify an alternate URL, when you find the news item on the front page or in the news list, when you click on the link, it takes you to the other site. So we got the same thing on events. That's basically that. So if you put your event up on the Iowa State calendar, this is a really good example. You should really, if you want to get your event out there, put it on the Iowa State calendar. Then you can specify that event, the link to that event as the thing. So you don't have to retype everything. You can just say, reference that event that the calendar site said, and people can go there and read about your event.
Yeah, so if it's a major event and you have it listed there, that's a great reason for it. Sometimes a lot of you collaborate with groups on campus, and you're maybe a I guess more of a collaborator on an event, but maybe your lab group or your research group is helping with an event at like Ryman Gardens or something, or a local place. And this would be I know that there's a lot going on with sometimes in the different parks, like Ada Hayden might have something going on. So you'll be able to link directly to that event on maybe another website that has the basic information. So that's what that's for. And then lastly, the video transcript. So the video transcript box you've all seen when you upload videos. A lot of you utilize YouTube or Vimeo to post your transcripts, and that's effective, that's accessibly compliant, that's a good thing to do. And some of you, I know that it was a workarounds, would put something in the transcript box, like a dot or something, and then you're kind of wondering, like, where does that appear, And so we were wondering that too, and that's something that we have talked with accessibility coordinators about, trying to determine where's the best place for that to appear. Like, should it appear on the page? Should it appear somewhere on the back end of somebody? Like, we wanted to collect the information to see what's going on or what we should do with it if someone utilizes that box in the way that's intended. And so we've determined that it's best to show the content on the page. So now if you decide to insert a transcript with your video in that box, then your transcript will appear below the video. So, all right, that's all that we had for today. And so are there any questions that anyone has in regards to anything that we've talked about or anything that we haven't? Maybe you have a question about your own website that you're trying to work with. Feel free to put a question in the chat. But anyway, thank you, John, for being here today. And this was a fun discussion. I hope you were able to learn a little bit more about what happens with these releases. And we're excited to work with all of you and continue to work with you on updating your websites. So please remember web support at iastate.edu if you have any questions. See you next time.